Chapter 1921 Peerless. One should know that even the weakest member of the dragon clan was of god officer rank when the divine realm still existed. After the downfall of the dragon clan, the dragon's abilities weakened substantially. Nevertheless, every giant dragon was still equal to title Douluo rank at the very least. Tang Wuling summoned the golden dragon spear to his left hand and pointed it at the abyssal passage. Immediately, the divine dragon legion advanced toward the tide of abyssal creatures at the sound of deafening dragon's roars. The artillery fire blanketed the battleground while the divine dragon legion resisted from the front. All at once, the combat zone fell into total chaos. The abyssal sage king merely stood and calmly observed everything that Tang Wuling did. He did not express anything as if everything was unrelated to him. The divine dragon legion spearheaded the offensive, so Tang Wuling turned around as well to face the abyssal sage king. He raised the sea god's trident and golden dragon spear simultaneously. All of a sudden, he turned and hurled the golden dragon spear. It moved like an arrow toward the abyssal sage king. The abyssal sage king kept his left hand behind his back just as before, while he swung the heaven-sent crack abyss in his right hand. Clang! With a clang, the golden dragon spear was tossed aside after being hit. Don't you understand yet? Your efforts are futile regardless of what you do. It is because I'm already here. Halos of 9 colors descended from the sky. It was the divine skill, the indefinite storm. As he was confronted by the halos, the abyssal sage king held his heaven-sent crack abyss straight before his body. The smile on his face remained unchanged. It was a success. When the halos wrapped around the Sage King's body, Tang Wuling could immediately feel that the Sage King was already within his grasp. It seemed that the opponent had carelessly been trapped by his divine skill. The indefinite storm's control ability was so strong that it was able to trap a god long enough for Tang Wuling to unleash his next attack. The darkness between the sky and ground abruptly turned even darker. It was so dark that one could not see one's own hands. Even the purple sun had vanished. It was forbid one world. Piercing brilliance suddenly burst forth. It was a blazing hot white light that carried an incomparably majestic aura. Tang Wuling was well aware that this was perhaps his only chance. Thus, he held nothing back as he channeled all that he had into his sea god's trident. The sharp aura erupted with an ineffable terror. Everything turned into an incandescent color, including his body and the sea god's trident. It transformed into a bright ray of light that swept past the abyssal Sage King. Still immobilized by the indefinite storm, the sky and ground were still frozen. The powerhouses that were engaged in the battle shifted their gaze to this side. All of them knew that the battle between Tang Wuling and Douluo against the Sage King was the crucial factor that would determine the outcome of the war. The loud blasts of the artillery fire should have drowned out the attack. However, it seemed that even sound was stripped away from the world when the bright light ray pierced through the Sage King. Radiance flashed past, and an unhealthy pallor could be seen on Tang Wuling's face, despite still being in his dragon god shape heaven form. Fatigue was the price he paid for unleashing everything. He was thoroughly exhausted after launching the attack. However, it would all be worth it if he could defeat the abyssal Sage King. I said before that both of you aren't real gods yet. Even if you were a real god, how can you possibly hurt me without the power of a rank 1 godhood? The abyssal Sage King lowered his head and looked at himself. More than half of his body had been ruptured by the dragon emperor shine, but the smile on his face only grew wider. The 9-colored indefinite storm coiled around his body vanished. There was a flash of blue-purple radiance, and all his wounds disappeared without a trace as if he had never been injured. How is that possible? Tang Wuling could not help screaming out. The abyssal Sage King said calmly, "Nothing is impossible. Why don't you think about this? My subordinates can be resurrected through the abyss. As its leader, I am the abyss personified. Who do you think you are to try to kill me?" Tang Wuling's heart sank immediately. The combination of the indefinite storm and dragon emperor shine was already the most powerful technique he could unleash, especially when it was unleashed in his dragon god transformation. He had already exhausted all his abilities with that strike. Moreover, the abyssal Sage King could recover from that just in a moment. He really was immortal. The abyssal Sage King appeared to be very patient. He looked at Tang Wuling and said, "Do you know what it means if I die? It means that the core of the whole abyss will fall apart. The entire abyssal plane will crumble for me. My death will detonate the abyss. As the only plane that is linked to the abyss, your entire star will explode as well. Thus, even if you have the ability to defeat me, you won't be able to kill me. Moreover, you're still far from being able to achieve that. Frankly, I was already very bored of living on the abyssal plane for so many years. I was constantly doing the same thing every day. I'm very happy that I got to chat with you today. What a waste that I'll still need to end you. After all, I'm still able to sense something that threatens my presence in you. I shall let you bear witness to my real power." As he spoke, the abyssal Sage King stepped forward with his left foot. The step seemed normal, but Tang Wuling felt as if the abyssal Sage King had already moved across the vast sky. In the next moment, he arrived before Tang Wuling and swung the heaven-sent crack abyss in his hand horizontally. The blue-purple blade's radiance was only about 3 meters in length just as before. It appeared to be quite easy to dodge, but Tang Wuling realized that he could no longer move. It felt as if the entire world was repelling him and pushed him to the front of the heaven-sent crack abyss by force. PSSH. There was a flash of blood as Tang Wuling let out a muffled grunt. Even though the sea god's trident managed to block the heaven-sent crack abyss, Tang Wuling was still blasted away by the impact. 2 silhouettes became separated in the air. Douluo stumbled out from his body. Douluo was safe and sound while Tang Wuling's chest and abdomen were fully exposed. A large amount of blood was gushing out. The golden dragon moonsong was utterly ineffective in resisting the attack. The super divine weapon is dependent upon who wields it too. I wouldn't stand a chance if the sea god's trident were held in your father's hand. The same divine skill unleashed by him would have already killed me. What a waste that you're still far from that. You're not even a real god yet. How can you possibly rival me? Wuling. Douluo held Tang Wuling in the air. Fresh blood was streaming out from his nose and mouth. His body was even uncontrollably shaking. His wounds were healing rapidly, but his face was starting to turn paler and paler. His entire body was shaking violently as if he was struggling to hold on to his own life. Douluo's eyes instantly filled with tears. She had only just realized what had happened. The dragon god transformation fused them as one. Any injury endured during the process of dragon god transformation was supposed to be shared equally, but Tang Wuling was constantly controlling the skill. As the main controller, he was the only person enduring the injuries. The abyssal Sage King's attack earlier appeared simple, yet the heaven-sent crack abyss ability was unleashed in an unparalleled manner. One could imagine how terrifying the attack had been when even the sea god's trident was incapable of resisting it. Even so, the first thing Tang Wuling did when he was hit was to separate himself from Douluo instead of concentrating their powers to resist. This was because Tang Wuling understood very well that they may not necessarily be able to resist it even if he were to concentrate their powers. It was highly possible both of them would end up severely injured. Because he separated from Douluo, he became even weaker. The abyssal Sage King's heaven-sent crack abyss was tilted upward when it pierced Tang Wuling's chest and abdomen from below. It broke Tang Wuling's dragon core and his heart. The incomparably sharp aura burst through Tang Wuling's most vital organs. His heart and dragon core had been crushed. Chapter 1922 Amorous love loathes itself for wrongly devoting love for the heartless. Tang Wuling's exuberant aura had seemingly lost its hold on him. It was rapidly dispersing. The abyssal Sage King looked at the heaven-sent crack abyss. This feeling is truly wonderful. As he spoke, he took one step forward again. However, he was not doing it to pursue Douluo. Instead, he was heading toward the main battlefield. His body grew larger while he glided, as did the heaven-sent crack abyss in his hand. It felt as long as a century yet as short as a moment. He had already grown to over 1,000 meters in height, and he slashed the heaven-sent crack abyss horizontally. PSSH. It felt as if the world had shattered. Even when the heaven-sent crack abyss was elongated to 1,000 meters, it still emitted a radiance that was only 3 meters long. Nevertheless, its gigantic size was enough. All the living creatures within 1,000 meters were shattered completely and annihilated, including the giant dragons, a large number of abyssal creatures, mankind's mechas, and their fighter aircraft. Everything was destroyed by the heaven-sent crack abyss. The dragon souls rose into the sky, yet they were churned up in the sharp, endless storm. Countless dragon bones were flying everywhere before the heaven-sent crack abyss. Even the real dragons were swept away by the storm. The entire main battlefield was emptied out. The abyssal Sage King's body shrunk afterward. He turned back to his original human size and levitated in the empty sky. It was a little noisy. "I prefer the silence," he said with a smile. He took a step forward once again. This time, he appeared to have crossed the void. Everything on the vast expanse of the sea was dark and gloomy. On the other hand, a gigantic silhouette over 100,000 meters in height appeared in the next moment. The terrifying heaven-sent crack abyss was swept horizontally once again to wreak havoc on the sea surface. Piercing, loud booming noises were heard, followed by countless sparks. None of the cutting-edge artillery belonging to the Federation could escape the super divine weapon. It had only taken one blow for the sea to be silenced. In the Abyssal Sage King's words, the super divine weapon depended upon the wielder. The heaven-sent crack abyss in his hand seemed to be able to annihilate everything in the world and wipe out anything in its path. The divine brush Douluo Wanzi was completely stunned after watching the large screen before him. Who would have thought that mankind's legion, fighting vigorously alongside the divine dragon legion, a moment ago would fall into deathly stillness in the next moment? The surface of the sea was covered with fragments of destroyed warships. In fact, not even an abyssal creature could be seen next to the abyssal passage. Only the human forces and numerous powerhouses slightly further away were not affected by the strike. Tang Wolin was severely injured and on the verge of death. It was apparent that Yuna could not possibly turn back the powers of darkness. Humanity was doomed. From the appearance of the Abyssal Sage King to his long-winded narration, up to when everything happened before their eyes, it all changed too quickly. The numerous powerhouses of humankind only truly understood at that point why the Abyssal Sage King was so talkative earlier. It was because everything was already settled the instant he appeared in the eyes of this Lord of the Abyss. Nothing would change anymore, and he was eager to share the pride in his heart with everyone. Every single person witnessed his ruthless and most terrifying side when he launched the attacks. He was not only killing humans but his subjects as well. In his eyes, everything else but himself was inconsequential. He was the creator, and he wanted to devour everything else. Just as he mentioned earlier, he was the Abyss personified. He was the overlord of the Abyss. No one was capable of stopping his attacks. It seemed like it was all over. Tang Wolin lay in Gyuna's arms. His body was still convulsing and shivering. He was already incapable of speech anymore. Fresh blood would come gushing out from his mouth as soon as he opened it. Even his leak-proof golden body was but a joke before the heaven-sent crack abyss. There was utterly nothing he could do to stop it. A god holding a super divine weapon could dominate a plane so easily. Moreover, it was highly possible that this person could rival a rank 1 god. Gyuna's face was already drenched in tears. She unleashed all sorts of light attribute soul skills to the best of her abilities in an attempt to cure Tang Wuli, but her efforts were in vain. The light element was weakened the most under the Abyssal Sage King's control. All of a sudden, Gyuna seemed to have come up with an idea. She raised her head and looked in the direction of the life subtree. However, it was also at this moment when the Abyssal Sage King suddenly used his left hand to grasp at thin air. In the distance, the life tree was suddenly uprooted, and the rich life source withered. You can run rather quickly. The corners of the Abyssal Sage King curled into a disdainful smile. Your clone may escape, but can your own body run as well? It's just a matter of time. I'm not in a rush. I'm in no rush at all. Your Highness, please don't hesitate anymore. You may only possibly be able to stop him by his return. A deep voice said to Gyuna. Gyuna's body shook. She turned her head to the side and looked behind her. The beast god Ditian was looking at her anxiously from nearby. His return? She understood what Ditian meant, of course, but bringing back the dragon god meant that Tang Wolin had to die and the 3 final golden dragon king seals inside his body had to be opened up. Moreover, she would need to devour him completely as well. No, I can't. Moreover, the Abyssal Sage King would never allow her to guide the dragon god back once he sensed the change in her aura. Meanwhile, 2 heavy sighs were heard all of a sudden. The day has finally arrived, said one of the voices that had sighed. Even though it's only a temporary reprieve, I think it's about time for us to make an appearance too. Another voice spoke. It sounded disappointed and very bitter. The 2 voices came from far into the distance, and 2 silhouettes began to grow larger. Those were not 2 people but 2 swords. One of the swords was white with a line of blood extending from the center of the hilt all the way to its tip. The other sword was dark blue and glistened with a bright radiance. They began to enlarge at full speed and turned into giant swords over 100 meters in height in the blink of an eye. Oh. Do you still have more tricks? The Abyssal Sage King could not help expressing his interest upon witnessing the scene. He was not in a hurry to fight, but he turned around to look toward the sword as if he was enjoying some art. 2 human silhouettes had also appeared in the sky soon afterward, but they were illusionary. It was obvious that those were not their real bodies, but just projections of themselves. They were the Tang Sect's 2 great limit Douluos, the heartless Douluo Cao Daja and the amorous Douluo Zhangxin. They had rather strange expressions on their faces. It was even more shocking that they were holding hands even though they were only projections of their mirages. The scene managed to move the people's emotions profusely. Cao Daja looked toward Gyuna down below. Only the 2 of you might stand a slim chance. We can only try to buy you some time. There are many secrets within Wolin. He is the lord of the plane's providence. He is able to connect to the plane of power regardless. You must help him so we can have that final chance no matter how small. Gyuna was stunned. On the other hand, Zhangxin next to Cao Daja looked at her with a deep gaze and said, "Don't forget the flower that Tang Wolin gifted you in the past." Upon saying that, the 2 silhouettes suddenly soared. The 2 giant swords had also surged straight into the sky. They would pierce through the heavens. The glowing mirages of the 2 great limit Douluos held hands at all times. The heartless Douluo Cao Daja spoke in a loud, resonant voice. Life can be heartless, but you may still meet people full of passion. The amorous Douluo Zhangxin took a deep glance at him from the side. He recited similarly, amorous love loads itself for wrongly devoting love for the heartless. In the crowd, only the older generation of powerhouses could vaguely understand the situation. It was their martial soul fusion skill. This was the fusion of these 2 great limit Douluos that had not appeared on the Douluo continent for many years. Chapter 1923 Emotions moved to the heaven. Could their martial soul fusion skill stop the Abyssal Sage King? Even the dragon god transformation unleashed by the 2 great quasi-gods Tang Wolin and Gyuna did not manage to do so. The silhouettes of these 2 people transformed into countless light shadows in the next moment. Much to everyone's surprise, the light shadows illuminated the sky. The heartless sword and the amorous sword merged in the air and transformed into a dazzling silver light ray which rose into the sky. Rich emotional fluctuations burst out instantly and radiated throughout the entire scene. At that very moment, everyone cried profusely. Even the Abyssal Sage King seemed to be affected as well. He spotted a stunned look on his face for a moment. In the next moment, the Abyssal Sage King was the first to react to the situation. He suddenly pointed with his left hand in the direction of Gyuna. At the same time, he teleported to the sky and swung his heaven-sent crack abyss horizontally toward the 2 giant swords in the air. A crippled silhouette shielded himself in front of Gyuna without the slightest hesitation. He called out loudly, "Let's hanging off." The combat heaven and earth consciousness exploded simultaneously with the radiance shooting out from the void and turning into blood which rained down the sky. The previous spirit pagoda's pagoda master, a quasi-god beyond his time, Kyangi Diding had fallen. He used his body to shield Gyuna and Tang Wolin from the attack in exchange for his grandson's future. That was if mankind still had a future. Meanwhile, the silver overlapping objects poured down from the sky. For the first time, the Abyssal Sage King's heaven-sent crack abyss missed. It was supposed to be for close combat after all, yet it lost its target the moment it was swung. The overlapping objects descended from the sky. The incomparably rich emotional fluctuations covered the entire scene and enshrouded everything including the Abyssal Sage King and the abyssal creatures which were once again charging out from the abyssal passage. It then turned into a gigantic silver-like cocoon. The immense pressure in the air suddenly vanished. The sky became brighter. However, the purple sun was still there with the gloomy haze as well. The 2 gigantic phantom shadows hovered in the sky. They appeared calm and exonerated with relief. The heartless Douluo Cao Daja said to the people below, "Our martial soul fusion skill will only last for 3 days. 3 days later, the spatial emanation will disappear. Thus, you only have 3 days to prepare. Tang Wolin and Gyuna are our only hope. Please spare no effort in supporting them. Life can be heartless, but you may still meet people full of passion. Amorous love loads itself for wrongly devoting love for the heartless." It was the amorous Douluo and the heartless Douluo's martial soul fusion skill known as the emotions moved to heavens and vacuum seal. The Tang Sect's Douluo Hall's Hall Master, heartless Douluo Cao Daja, had fallen. The Tang Sect's Douluo Hall's deputy Hall Master, amorous Douluo Zhangxin had also fallen. Has it ended at last? Are we free at last? Zhangxin asked Cao Daja softly. Cao Daja had a rather bitter expression. "I'm sorry. Zhang Xin shook his head. There's no reason for you to apologize to me. You're not the only one, as I'm just as cowardly when it comes to facing this, right? Since the first time we met, no, from the moment we were born, we were destined to be connected. It seems like we are destined to a tragic end as well. When we first utilized the emotions moved to the heavens in the past, we actually understood it all. You even took the initiative to be the blood god army's war god one. I didn't stop you since we both don't want such a situation to happen. Cao Dada heaved a sigh and said, actually, we're both not wrong. The only wrong is that we've been pranked by heaven. We can't truly be together after all. It's not because of our gender. Rather, it's because the amorous sword and the heartless sword rejected each other all along except during the momentary fusion. Zhang Xin smiled bitterly and said, that's true. This is heaven's prank on us. It's also the price we pay for possessing a curse like the emotions moved to the heavens. It makes us incapable of loving anyone else although we rejected each other despite sharing a single heart. That's why I said we're destined to end up as a tragedy. Cao Dada said, it's over at last. Everything has ended. However, I only learned today that not all limit Douluos need to sacrifice their lives in order to unleash their martial soul fusion skill. It seems like we're the only ones. Our reservations are finally showing some effect. It's a pity we're able to strive for only 3 days. Zhang Xin said, Wulin is the son of the sea god Tang San. I believe there will certainly be a miracle. We've already done what we can. The war god Hall has dispatched the Skycrosser Douluo who achieved the god rank in a single step. On the other hand, our Tang sect has an absolute immobility god's curse like our emotions moved to the heavens. We haven't embarrassed the Tang sect. We're still the Tang sect's glory after all. Cao Dada burst out laughing aloud. That's not important anymore. All this is no longer important. I've no regrets in my life, and I've never regretted knowing you too. Zhang Xin said, best don't let me encounter you again in our next lives. Cao Dada shook his head in determination. No, we're brothers in this life. Perhaps, we'll be husband and wife in our next life. The silver light shield stood erected with the overlapping layers of silver radiance which isolated the inside completely from the outside. The powerhouses from Shrek Academy and the Tang sect were already in deep sorrow and pain in the meantime. Shrek and the Tang sect had suffered tremendous losses in this war. They were the light dark Douluo Lan Yeyu, the holy spirit Douluo Yali, the Skyfrost Douluo Wu Zhangkong, the sunwood Douluo Lan Muzi, and now with the Tang sect's 2 great limit Douluos, the amorous Douluo Zhang Xin and the heartless Douluo Cao Dada. Almost half of the entire Shrek Academy and the Tang sect's fighting force was lost in this event. Who would have thought that the 2 great Douluo Hall's Hallmasters who had concealed themselves all this while finally burst forth with the glory of the Tang sect? They had sealed the Abyssal Sage King in one move. Even the Abyssal Sage King that possessed the heaven sent crack abyss was rendered incapable of breaking the overlapping spatial seal temporarily. Yet, was there really any significance to this? Everyone's heart sank to the bottom. The Abyssal Sage King was fearless. Were they capable of turning back the powers of darkness after 3 days? Moreover, Tang Wulin was on the verge of death. The people from the Tang sect and Shrek Academy had gathered around Tang Wulin and Gu Yuna. At present, the enormous wound on Tang Wulin's chest had healed due to his potent self-healing ability. Yet, fresh blood was still gushing out from his mouth and nose. It was possible to heal the heart under the effect of his leak-proof golden body. However, the heaven sent crack abyss effect was truly terrifying. An incomparably sharp aura was still causing damage to Tang Wulin's body. It was also weakening his life source continually. There was nothing he could do even if he tried to transfer himself back to the ancient life tree. Had it been someone else, they would be dead already. Tang Wulin's tenacious vitality gave him the strength to persist. Please protect me while I do this, said Gu Yuna in determination. As she spoke, she cautiously procured a jade box from her soul storage. It was the amorous Douluo's words which reminded her of this. She had been given a gift through painstaking efforts by Tang Wulin in the past. She opened up the jade box anxiously. Gu Yuna's hands were shaking. Her entire body was covered in Tang Wulin's fresh blood at the moment. A large scarlet flower lay softly inside the box emitting a faint golden glow. The moment it appeared, the sad emotion which was in the air due to the emotions shook the heavens faded. It was the immortal grass in the mortal world, and the king of immortal grass painstakingly plucked by Tang Wulin known as the lovesick heartbroken red. Gu Yuna picked up the lovesick heartbroken red and stuffed it into her mouth. She began to chew softly. The lovesick heartbroken red melted on her tongue and quickly turned into a dash of refreshing, fragrant liquid in her mouth. Chapter 1924 Heart remolded. Gu Yuna immediately sealed the liquid using the spatial element in her mouth. She lowered her head, kissed Tang Wulin before a number of witnesses. She passed the mouthful of immortal grass nectar mixed with her saliva to him. What was that? It was an uncertainty felt in many people's hearts. The amorous Douluo and the heartless Douluo were the only people in the Tang sect who knew how powerful the lovesick heartbroken red was. A miraculous scene unfolded. Tang Wulin's body shook once after the lovesick heartbroken red was absorbed by his body. The fresh blood which was flowing unceasingly earlier stopped at once. Soon after, a layer of golden red radiance glowed on his body. At the same time, a layer of pink glow circulated. Later, a silhouette emerged next to him. It was precisely the damask tulip. As soon as he appeared, he immediately said to Gu Yuna anxiously, "Quick, use your aura to mobilize his aura so the medicine can take full effect." The lovesick heartbroken red needs the lover's aura the most. Only true love can allow the medicine to take its full effect. Gu Yuna was stunned for a while. In the next moment, she hugged Tang Wulin tightly and placed her cheek against his tightly. She used her body to give him warmth and infused her soul power slowly in an attempt to trigger his aura fluctuation. The lovesick heartbroken red deserved its reputation of being an immortal grass. Following the infusion of Gu Yuna's aura, changes soon began to take place in Tang Wulin's body. The first change was in his breathing. His shallow breathing earlier gradually calmed itself. It seemed he was most stable when he was lying in Gu Yuna's arms. The intense sharp aura inside his body was progressively affected by the medicinal effect. Naturally, the lovesick heartbroken red could not resist the terrifying sharpness of the heaven sent crack abyss. Nevertheless, the lovesick heartbroken red stimulated Tang Wulin's instinct substantially. Tang Wulin's body recovered at a much faster rate than before. Even though his body was being damaged currently, everything would normalize when his recovery rate matched the rate of damage. Gradually, the condition of his body stabilized. His breathing began to sound normal as well. More importantly, he had a heartbeat now. Under the medicinal effect of the lovesick heartbroken red, his heart was remolded. At the same time, Tang Wulin's aura burst out to dissolve the sharp aura a little at a time with the infusion of Gu Yuna's soul power. The divine brush Douluo Guanzi and the bright mirror Douluo Zhang Wan Yun had arrived in the meantime. Most of the outstanding powerhouses had fallen in this war. The war god Hall's Hallmaster, the 2 Douluo Hall's Hallmasters and the numerous limit Douluos had all fallen. The 3 great fleets were annihilated. Mankind's legion was severely impaired as well. The only people left who could represent mankind were these 2 and Gu Yuna. Guanzi stood on the side and watched Gu Yuna treat Tang Wulin with a dim gaze. It felt as if he had grown older by a decade after watching the Abyssal Sage King destroy the main fighting force on the battlefield and the 3 great fleets in succession. He had just been queried by the federal parliament earlier. It was because the entire Douluo continent had sunk into pitch black darkness and there was widespread panic in every corner of the continent. The parliament was in chaos while the military department was continuously issuing queries. The only thing Guanzi could do was to send back all the recordings of the frontline battle scenes to the federal parliament. Then, the federal parliament and the military department went silent. Before he came over, he had sent a set of recordings to them. The final scene stopped at the point where the amorous Douluo and the heartless Douluo had sacrificed themselves to seal the abyss. The catastrophe was inevitable. Currently, Guanzi had lost all confidence despite the resolve in his heart. Was it fear? He did not have much fear. Death was not a terrifying thing for him. If the boundless sea Douluo Chenzinji and the ferocious wolf Douluo Dongxian could sacrifice themselves for the Federation, he could do it too. Yet, as the supreme commander of the 3 armies, he was incapable of leading the federal military to fight for mankind's future. He felt more like a criminal of mankind at the moment. It seemed like the Douluo continent had used every available option. There was nothing left for them. It was over. They were doomed. So what if Tang Wulin could be cured? Would they be capable of stopping the Abyssal Sage King then? They could not do it at all. The battle earlier had proven everything. There was nothing the Lord of the Douluo continent plane could do to the Abyssal Sage King's terrifying power. The Abyssal Sage King was many times more terrifying than the Demon Empress earlier. Tang Wulin's heartbeat grew stronger gradually. It exuded a feeling of vigor and vitality. Everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. Tang Wulin was alive at last. His breathing sounded normal as he gradually fell into a deep sleep. Gu Yuna was relieved. She stood up with Tang Wulin in her arms and looked toward the divine brush Douluo Guanzi and said with a deep voice, "Everyone is already exhausted. Regardless of the situation 3 days later, everyone needs to rest now. We won't give up." If there's still a glimmer of hope, we won't give up. At this point, her purple eyes were filled with determination. Uguanzi was taken aback. He fostered some hope at last. Since these young people were so determined, how could he feel helpless and give up hope? Yes, don't give up. We'll gather our strength. Even if we were to die, we'll die on the battlefield. Gu Yuna nodded toward him. She leapt up with Tang Wulin in her arms and flew toward the mountain where the life subtree was planted earlier. Shrek Academy and the Tang Sex campsite was set up there and had not been damaged. Every single person felt relieved by Gu Yuna's emotional influence. Even with an impending apocalypse, they still had 3 more days. Meanwhile, they would need to figure out something for the final 3 days. In the federal parliament, what should we do? It was on the mind of every parliament member. However, no one knew what they should do at the moment. Who would have thought that it would turn out this way when all the Federation's forces came together? The important scenes from all the battles had just been shown on the large screen in the parliament. Who was to be blamed for the situation before their eyes? The soldiers on the front line had sacrificed their lives. Everyone had put in their utmost effort. Many people had hoped for the final victory. Gu Yuna and Tang Wulin collaborated to defeat the Demon Empress. Yet, who would have thought that the Abyssal Sage King would appear? The conspiracy which lasted for 6,000 years was finally exposed. Most importantly, the matter at hand was to stop concealing the truth. The darkness which had encroached on the Douluo continent had sent everyone into a panic. The world outside was in chaos. The most powerful army troops were at the front line. Moreover, they had suffered great losses. The parliament did not even possess the military strength to suppress the people now. They had 3 more days. 3 days was the deadline given by the front line. 3 days later, the seal formed by the heartless Douluo and the amorous Douluo who had sacrificed their lives would be broken. It would be the advent of an apocalypse. It's meaningless for us to continue the meeting here. We've 3 days left to do what we can. We're wasting time here. We don't stand a chance now. Royal Hawk faction's member with reddened eyes. Sigh. Everything that was going to happen has happened, and it's irrevocable now. The soldiers fighting on the front line didn't do anything wrong. They had sacrificed their lives to protect the continent. The enemies were just overly powerful. They had already done everything they could. There's nothing we can do now. We can't even offer reinforcements now. There's no way out. There's just no way out. All the voices were filled with despair and fear, just like the divine brush Douluo at the front line. The vast majority of the parliament members were as anxious as cats on a hot tin roof. Chapter 1925 Unity. Suddenly, a person stood up from among the members of the parliament. She walked up in long strides and made her way to the chairman's side at the chairman's station. Please listen to me. Molan was dressed in a fitting dark blue suit of formal wear. Her long hair was tied into a ponytail that made her appear neat and nimble. Her gaze was deep yet determined and not the panic and despair that the others had. The chairman hesitated for a moment, but he did not stop her. Molan was now the true leader of the Dou faction. Following the resurgence of the Dou faction, she had achieved a high status in the parliament. It was a time when there were no leaders among the multitude of people, when the people were confused and disconcerted. When someone came forward with a suggestion, it was certainly better than the present chaotic situation. Following Molan's announcement, the members of the parliament shifted their gaze back to the chairman's station. They recognized Molan obviously. The din quelled soon after. Molan had a calm and composed expression. Everyone, why do we get to sit in this room? Are we here just to represent ourselves? No, we're representing the population in the Douluo Federation. We were voted by them to be present here so as to discuss the Federation's affairs. If we give up, then it is truly the end of the Douluo Federation, or perhaps, even all mankind. The people are always saying that our parliament is divided into the Hawk faction, the Dou faction, the independent faction, etc. Some are calling me the representative of the Dou faction. So, if I, the person who supports peace, refuse to give up, what are your excuses to give up then? We only have another 3 days. There are no lack of miracles in this world. Why can't we anticipate a miracle to happen then? The soldiers on the front line risked their lives, and there are many who died in battle in icy cold Tula. Meanwhile, what have we done as we sit in this warm hall? If we can't even give them moral support, do we deserve the right to be here? Now is the time to decide the survival or death of the Douluo Federation. It is also precisely the time that we should all be united as one to fight against a formidable enemy. We can't give up now. If we give up, the Federation will immediately be in disorder. Only determination and unity can possibly result in a miracle. At least, we must ensure that the Federation is not in chaos under our management before the arrival of the miracle. Even if there isn't a miracle and the great catastrophe is truly upon us, mankind will die standing with dignity before those alien creatures. Her statement was made in a sonorous and forceful tone. It felt as if the windows of the entire parliament hall were shaking. If one were to say that the noise was reduced earlier, the entire scene was now dead silent after her sonorous, forceful statement was made. They needed a strong voice during such turbulent times the most. Any member of the parliament in the room, who represented at least one faction, was deemed a rather influential individual of the Federation. The earlier recordings were truly shocking. The people were scared out of their wits, especially after watching the complete annihilation of the 3 great fleets. Although many people wanted to know the possibility of a miracle happening, they needed a mainstay such as Molan even more. Undoubtedly, she had managed to bring the people together at this crucial juncture. Molan did not give them time to ponder. She continued speaking in a loud voice. Thus, I have a proposal. When she made the announcement, she intentionally paused for a moment. Later, her aura became more overpowering. The most important task for us now is to bring the people together, so they can act as one and provide moral support to our frontline soldiers. We must tell them that the parliament and the whole population are with them. In Mingdu. The people panicked upon seeing the purple sun in the sky. Some dissonant voices were heard coming from the streets occasionally. Many of the shops were closed, especially the shops that sold groceries. Within a day, all the commodity prices surged to all-time highs. Yet, the folks were making panic purchases. No one knew what was happening, but the oppressing feeling which descended from the sky the other day was for real. Everyone seemingly felt the terrifying feeling of oppression and was certain it was a catastrophe. The key issue was it had been a full day, yet the government had yet to make any announcements. In fact, even the media was silent. Those who were more intelligent speculated that an important event had probably occurred. It was an event that affected the entire Federation. In the central square, it was a bustling area of Mingdu with many landmark buildings. It was a top tourist spot for the outsiders who were visiting. Frequently, exhibitions on consumer and advanced technologies were organized here. For example, the first large cell screen in human history was installed here. With the constant progress in technology, the large screen was now 10 times its initial size. The display screen was 120 meters in height, 40 meters in width, which made it the largest display screen in the Federation installed in the central square landmark where the federal building was located. Many businesses in the Federation were willing to pay a high price for advertising their businesses on the screen, which they were really proud of. At present, the large screen was showing an advertisement, yet no one paid it any attention. Usually, there were few who stopped to look at the screen. All of a sudden, the screen dimmed abruptly. The light, which illuminated the surroundings initially, had vanished. The people who were rushing by shifted their gaze to it subconsciously due to the sudden change in the lighting. In the next moment, the screen brightened up again. A woman with a beautiful, dignified face dressed in formal attire appeared on the screen. Her voice was broadcasted throughout the entire central square via the Seoul audio amplifiers. All the various media, the Seoul television stations, the large outdoor screens in the entire Federation played the same scene at the moment. Hello everyone, my name is Molan and I'm a member of the parliament. All at once, everyone watching the screen stopped moving. It seemed as if they had a premonition. They immediately shifted their gaze to the screen and summoned their friends and family to watch it together. This would affect the future of everyone. Molan paused for a moment. I'm going to announce some bad news. As a representative of the parliament and government, I believe every single person deserves to know about an important event which will determine the Federation's survival. 6,000 years ago, it was a story. The story began 6,000 years ago when the Abyssal Plane first arrived. The powerhouses from Shrek Academy, the Tang Sect, the Spirit Pagoda and the War God Hall led the Federation's soldiers to defeat the invaders for the first time. They've returned and brought the catastrophe upon us once again. The Holy Spirit cult contributed to the disaster, letting in the invaders. The scene that you're about to watch is precisely the blood river God killer great array made from a million human sacrifices. Once again, at this critical moment, Shrek Academy, the Tang Sect, they sacrificed their lives and poetized their splendid glory. They had crushed the enemy's conspiracy once again. The blood river God killer great array was finally broken. The large screen displayed some scenes which were considered top secret following Molan's announcement. The meticulously edited scenes highlighted the soul masters and soldiers who had devoted their efforts to fight against the enemies in the war. The public saw the soldiers spared no effort in fighting on the battlefield. They saw the soldiers going all out in their attacks. The blood river God killer great array was broken, and everything seemed calm at the moment. The defense lines were built once again. Just as everyone was relieved, the scene panned to a view of the sea and showed the demon empress transform from the deep sea devil whale king. Her appearance made everyone's chest tighten in fear. Next, the boundless sea Douluo Chenzinji appeared in military uniform with shiny general stars pinned on his shoulders. He fought ferociously against the demon empress on the sea. Chapter 1926. To be united is an impregnable stronghold. It was a battle between a quasi-god and a god. All the scenes were recorded by satellite. It was rare for ordinary people to come into contact with soul masters, let alone witness a battle of this rank. The scene captured everyone's attention. The boundless sea Douluo Chenzinji displayed his incomparably powerful fighting capacity. He fought against the demon empress repeatedly. The apocalyptic scene made the viewers feel suffocated. Had the recording not been shown by the federal parliament, the public would have thought that it was a special effects performance. Was it really a special effects performance? Of course not. It was a real battle. The public saw Chenzinji's forward battle armor and the extent of his powers. Occasionally, Molan would provide some explanations. It made everyone's blood boil on watching the recording. At the end, the boundless sea Douluo was defeated in the battle. The moment he stumbled into the sea, a feeling of sorrow swept over everyone. Chenzinji had lost. Undoubtedly, his opponent, the demon empress, was a god-rank powerhouse. Meanwhile, the light dark Douluo Lan Yayu made her way to the scene. Countless people cried profusely when they witnessed Chenzinji profess his love for Yayu during their final moments. The public were not aware that the powerhouses on the continent and from the military had risked their lives to protect them. The powerhouses were battling at a place far away which they themselves had never been to. The two great limit Douluos had fallen. On the other hand, the abyssal passage was flaring up once again. The war was in full swing. The federal military was steadily losing ground as they were being pushed back by their formidable enemies. The first defense line was lost, followed by the second defense line. The mountain was attacked and seized with the abyssal spirit dragons leading the terrifying abyssal legion to attack the defense line ceaselessly. The federal military soldiers suffered heavy losses with many lives lost. Finally, the public saw a silhouette which they were familiar with. It was the silver dragon princess Dou. However, Molan introduced her as the newly appointed spirit pagoda's pagoda master. For the common people, Dou was a powerhouse whom they were most familiar with since they had watched her during the Joust for a Spouse festival in the past. They remembered the advertisements promoting the silver dragon princess at the time. A beautiful woman always attracted the attention of the public, especially when the beautiful woman was also powerful in her abilities and held an esteemed status. She was everyone's focal point of attention. Dou led mankind's powerhouses to hold out against the enemy's offensive. The scene on the screen stirred up feelings of righteousness in the public. At last, Tang Wuling returned. Someone in Ningdu's central square cheered when he arrived on the battlefield cladded in the golden dragon moon song. All at once, the cheers of the people echoed throughout the central square. Tang Wuling fought against the demon empress ferociously while Dou killed the spirit monarch. At the same time, the powerhouses began to fall. The people were silent when the heavenly phoenix Douluo Lan Yaoshi perished together with the darkness phoenix Lan Yulai. It was definitely not a performance as the powerhouses were dying over there. The infrasonic aircrafts appeared. The Tangsex Douluo Hall powerhouses collaborated with the Blood God Army and the Air Force to suppress the abyssal legion's offensive. The public felt relieved that everything was progressing favorably. It was then that the demon empress proposed a bet of 3 rounds of battles. The scene switched over to Molan once again. The bet was agreed upon without the parliament's approval after a discussion was held between the frontline supreme commander and the powerhouses. They had hoped that the decision would increase the chances of survival for the soldiers. I believe that many of our viewers have family members who are frontline soldiers. Our heroes weren't acting cowardly. They were responsible for the lives of everyone. They chose to sacrifice their lives to uphold the glory of the continent and protect their fellow officers. I understand that the Federation wouldn't have agreed to proceed with the bet had they relayed the information to the Federation. There's a saying, a field commander must decide even against the king's orders. They made a decision which favored the survival of more soldiers. As a member of the parliament, I condemn them for their behavior. However, as a woman whose entire family died in the hands of the Holy Spirit cult, they're the heroes in my heart. Molan's eyes were red by the time she finished her commentary. Her lips were tightly pursed. At the same time, her emotions affected everyone. They were heroes. Yes, they were the heroes especially in the eyes of the family members of the frontline soldiers. There were hundreds and thousands of soldiers involved along with hundreds and thousands of families. Thus, the word hero was deeply entrenched into their minds. The scene switched over to the frontline once again. The Federation's side had completed the grouping. The Skycrosser Douluo Guan Yue led a team of the war gods into the battlefield to engage in an all-out war against the abyssal powerhouses. The haughty dragon Douluo Nan Gonji did not flinch at all and guarded the team by sacrificing his arm. When the martial soul fusion skill Vast Sun Heaven Bikin appeared on the battlefield, the viewers were overwhelmed with feelings of anger and righteousness. Simultaneously, the opponents displayed their powerful abilities, not least the ever-powerful abyssal devil monarch. The Skycrosser Douluo Guan Yue achieved godhood in a single step. He used his actions to prove the hidden skills of the war god hall. His earth-shattering spear became the mainstay. On the other hand, the ferocious wolf Douluo perished with the enemy. His final, deep gaze was etched into every witness's mind. They were the heroes. The two great limit Douluos sacrificed themselves to achieve the victory of the battle. A number of the war gods survived. On the other hand, the fallen limit Douluos were gone forever. Nonetheless, they were determined, calm, and composed. They were the real heroes. A large number of viewers were shedding tears. A few common folks might have doubted the frontline powerhouses who made the unilateral decision. Nevertheless, all their doubts were gone now, replaced with emotional tears. With great power comes great responsibility. The Skycrosser Douluo and the ferocious wolf Douluo taught us this lesson when they sacrificed their lives. Now, please tell me, are they not the heroes of our Federation? Yes. The reply, as loud as a roaring tsunami, echoed through the entire Douluo continent. All at once, a gush of invisible energy known as the power of belief swept through the air. The presence of the aura substantially weakened the pressure emitted by the dark sun in the sky. The second phase of the war had begun. When the 9 palace boxes appeared, everyone was shocked by the sight of it. They watched as the Holy Spirit Douluo Yali ignited her life and even her soul to burn the ghost emperor over and over again. In the end, she perished together with him. Consequently, the people cried profusely. Yali had saved countless lives in her lifetime. Her moniker as the #1 beauty in the Federation had existed for many years. She was a very beautiful woman, but her soul was even more beautiful. She was the only recovery type limit Douluo on the entire continent who had also become a victim in this war. She was the last limit Douluo in Shrek Academy who had vast experience. Next, Lan Muzi died. Wu Zhangkong was frozen into ice. The scenes were tugging at the public's heartstrings. No doubt they were all heroes. They were willing to sacrifice their lives valiantly to protect the continent. Even if they had to die, they would do it to bring victory to the continent. At last, the current Sea Gods Pavilion Master of Shrek Academy, the Tangsex Sect Master, the Golden Dragon Moon Song Tang Wuling and the Spirit Pagoda's Pagoda Master, the Silver Dragon Dance Keeling Dou made their appearances. They led the Shrek 6 monsters together with Sima Jinkai to fight against the Demon Empress and the intense monarch scene. The viewers held their breaths while watching the ferocious battle. The public cheered aloud when Tang Wuling held Dou held and together transformed into the Dragon God. The Demon Empress was defeated and on the verge of death. Mankind had finally achieved a tremendous victory. It was precisely then that the Abyssal Sage King seized the Demon Empress body and appeared before them. His shameless voice was heard. The whole story of the conspiracy was told without reservation on the screen. Chapter 1927. The entire Federation support. The public's excitement a moment ago suddenly turned to immeasurable rage. The people were burning with fury. The war began once again. The people's confidence was boosted when Tang Wuling summoned the Thousand Dancing Dragon. Yet, in the next moment, the Abyssal Sage King only brought despair. The front line was seriously defeated, while Tang Wuling was on the verge of death after being severely injured. Meanwhile, the amorous Douluo and the heartless Douluo stepped forward. They unleashed the emotions shock of heaven to seal the abyss. 2 more limit Douluos were sacrificed. The scene was paused when the light shield sealed the Abyssal Sage King. The viewers felt as though they were suffocating. They finally understood the reason behind the darkness and the appearance of the purple sun. The Federation did not conceal the truth from them as the reality was displayed right before them. However, they were not aware that Molan had hidden the annihilation of the 3 great fleets by the Abyssal Sage King from them. The act of bringing the people together could not possibly withstand the crushing blow of the incident. Molan hoped that she could rouse the people instead of bringing them despair. 3 days. 3 days is all we have. The seal will last for for 3 days. 3 days later, the Abyssal Sage King will be able to break the seal. The frontline has just sent over information that the Tang Sect Master, the Sea God's Pavilion Master of Shrek Academy, His Excellency, the Dragon Emperor Douluo Tang Wuling is safe and recovering in the meantime. He's preparing to make a dangerous breakthrough. Perhaps, he still stands a chance of winning if he completes the breakthrough. Everything you've witnessed took place in Tula. While we're enjoying a calm and peaceful life, those people are sacrificing their lives for our survival. They sacrificed their lives to bring us safety. What's our excuse in creating chaos this time? We should all be giving them our moral support now. We must tell them that 7 million people are supporting them. We'll be their strongest shield. They're risking their lives to fight for us. They'll remain our heroes regardless of whether they win or lose. We'll bear the consequences together with them. We strongly believe they'll defeat the enemy and bring victory for all of us. They'll give us a chance to survive. People, it's time to show our support. Let's be united and cheer together for our heroes. We'll be sending the recordings of your support to our soldiers immediately. They're the people whom we cherish the most. They are our heroes and warriors. The scene was paused. The entire continent was silent. Out of the blue, someone called out aloud, "Go Douluo, go Federation." All at once, the chanting began. Go Tang Sect, go Shrek Academy, go Spirit Pagoda, go War God Hall, go Northwest Army Corps, go Western Army Corps, go heroes. The shouting which echoed throughout the entire continent rapidly spread into all corners of the continent. The scenes of the heroes fighting ferociously shocked the hearts of the common folks. Everyone felt righteous in his or her own way. It reflected the public's behavior naturally. Molan wanted to bring the people together because to be united is an impregnable stronghold. It was impossible to hide the truth due to the immensity of what was happening. She might as well reveal it to hide some of the more negative events. For example, the Western Army Corps wrong decision and total defeat. Another unfortunate outcome was the annihilation of the 3 great fleets. She chose to only display the scenes of the heroes sacrificing themselves for the Federation. The belief power was invisible. However, it possessed tremendous power as well on a few occasions. Following the shouts, the sky turned brighter soon after. The pitch black sky gradually faded, making way for the increasing brightness, while the purple sun in the sky appeared to weaken as well. Molan stood behind the windows of the top floor office in the Parliament building. She looked outside and listened to the shouts which could still be heard clearly through the window. A hint of fatigue flashed past her eyes. The office, which belonged to the speaker, was loaned to her temporarily so she could make the announcement. There was some opposition in the plenary meeting earlier, but most of the voices supported her. Molan was surprised when she got more than 2/3 of the votes in the Parliament. She even had support from the Hawk faction. She was right in her judgment of the current situation. The Douluo Federation had never experienced a situation like this where the people were united, forming an impregnable stronghold. My junior, I've already done everything in my power for you. We're depending on you to create a miracle. The Federation needs this miracle. You'll have to succeed for sure. When Tang Wuling awoke from deep sleep, it was still dark outside. A peculiar sense of penetration radiated throughout his entire body. It was an unusually comfortable feeling. It felt as if his entire person had already sublimed. He had only experienced this feeling a few times in his life. It was when he formed his 5th soul ring to become nature's child. Another occasion was when he made the breakthrough of the first layer of the golden Dragon King seals. The transformation was obvious. He used his inner sight to examine the meridians in his body. All his meridians seemed to be coated with a faint gold-red color. If one were to describe his body as the leak-proof golden body in the past which was close to God rank, Tang Wuling obviously felt the qualitative change in his body currently. The dragon core had condensed into its shape. It was beating stronger than before and glowing with a vague gold-red radiance. There was also a peculiar emotion within it. What's going on? What happened? Tang Wuling vaguely remembered that he had been severely injured. He focused his mind to recall his memories gradually. He remembered everything that happened earlier. The memories made his heart sink. I'm not dead yet. He opened his eyes subconsciously and sat up on the bed. When his senses returned, the first thing he sensed was the familiar scene by his side. Gu Yuna sat cross-legged on the chair next to him. The moment Tang Wuling got up, she opened her eyes. The brilliance in her pair of beautiful, purple eyes reflected a look of surprise. You're awake. Tang Wuling's gaze immediately turned gentle upon seeing her. He just realized that he was in his room at the campsite. There were only the both of them in the room at present. What happened? Am I still alive? I thought that the distraction brought by the Abyssal Sage King's super divine weapon was incurable at the time. Oh right. The 2 excellencies, the amorous and the heartless. Tang Wuling saw their martial soul fusion skill as well, only that his whole body was on the verge of a breakdown at the time. His awareness was greatly reduced. Gu Yuna's gaze dimmed a little. She heaved a soft sigh and said, "They sacrificed their lives to seal the abyss temporarily so as to get a 3-day reprieve for us. A day has gone by. It was the amorous Douluo who guided me in using the lovesick heartbroken red, which he gifted me in the past, to save you. You were the one who told him to give the lovesick heartbroken red to me, right?" Tang Wuling nodded and said with a bitter smile, "I really didn't expect it to be used on me at last. No wonder I feel different now." A radiance flickered in Gu Yuna's beautiful eyes. "You're genuinely different now. If I'm not mistaken, your body has achieved God rank in a real sense. Even though your soul power cultivation base is still quasi-God ranked, the endurance of your body is fully elevated under the effect of the lovesick heartbroken red. It allows you to possess the foundation to become a true god." Tang Wuling heaved a sigh. "Yet, I'm afraid that it's still not enough to defeat the Abyssal Sage King." Gu Yuna took a deep glance at him and said, "Wuling, don't be discouraged. You are now the leader of all mankind. Everyone is now waiting for us to create a miracle. If we ourselves are discouraged, then mankind is really doomed. So is the Douluo continent." Chapter 1928 helped me achieve the breakthrough. Tang Wuling's lips cracked into a bitter smile. "You're right. We can't be discouraged. Yet, is there anything that we can now do? Is there anything that we can now do?" Upon listening to his words, the depths of Gu Yuna's eyes glimmered and her gaze changed ever so slightly. She had come up with an idea an hour before Tang Wuling awoke. "Your Highness, please don't hesitate further. This is our only way. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the small plane of the 10,000 beast platform won't exist anymore when the Douluo continent is devoured by the abyss. By then, it'll be impossible for you to fuse with Tang Wuling's golden Dragon King power to recover the Dragon God's body. Your Highness, even if you can't regain the true Dragon God's rank, the Abyssal Sage King may not necessarily be a worthy opponent of yours once you devour Tang Wuling and use the Dragon God's core as your foundation. Your Highness, you can't delay any longer. Make your move." "Your Highness," Gu Yuna spoke in a deep voice, "Wuling, we'll certainly come up with a way. Your body has been elevated to God rank after consuming the lovesick heartbroken red. You'll be able to withstand even stronger forces when we utilize the Dragon God transformation again. Not that our Dragon God transformation isn't powerful anymore, but our original bodies were incapable of withstanding such strong powers before. Thus, we must strengthen ourselves as much as possible in the remaining 2 days. We should mobilize all our powers now." Upon hearing Gu Yuna's words, Tang Wuling was deep in thought. They had already exhausted all their abilities, yet they were unable to resist the Abyssal Sage King during the battle the other day. One could only describe the Abyssal Sage King's abilities as unrivaled, beyond comparison. In addition, he had the super divine weapon, the Heaven Sent Crack Abyss. It made him ever victorious. Tang Wuling was incapable of withstanding even one hit from the super divine weapon despite the Dragon God transformation. The indefinite storm could perhaps control his opponent, yet it was only for a short period of time. The crucial issue was that he was utterly incapable of killing his opponent. If he was incapable of threatening his opponent, then all his efforts would be futile. What other ways could he use to injure or kill his opponent then? Tang Wuling crossed his arms and put on a big frown. The Sea God's trident was a super divine weapon too. However, he did not have the ability to fully express its power like his father. Despite his possession of the super divine weapon, it was impossible for him to elevate his abilities in 2 short days. His God-ranked body may be able to withstand his opponent's attacking ability. On the other hand, he had little ability to hurt his opponent. Naturally, Gu Yuna could see the frustration in him. In response, she spontaneously took a step forward to hold his hand. Tang Wuling raised his head and looked at her upon contact with her soft, smooth palm. Their eyes met, and they were standing so close they could feel each other's breath. Her silver hair, purple eyes, and exquisite face were right before his eyes. In fact, her presence sent Tang Wuling into into a momentary trance. An idea came into his mind subconsciously. It would be great if they were not in the middle of a war. Douluo, I want to be with you forever just like now, said Tang Wuling suddenly as the words escaped his mouth. A faint intimation of complex emotions flashed past her eyes. She did not speak as she took Tang Wuling's hands and placed them gently on her cheeks. Her cheeks were soft and delicate, but a little cold. Tang Wuling felt a gush of heat from the flame which burned inside him whenever he touched her. The newly formed dragon core was pulsating violently. He got closer to her almost subconsciously and kissed her passionately on her rosy red lips. Douluo wrapped her arms around his neck. She closed her eyes and leaned her charming figure into his cradle. Her cold, charming figure began burning hot. It was so hot that she not only burned Tang Wuling's body, but also his heart. Finally, her lips parted. They hugged each other tightly. They hoped that this moment would last forever. Wuling, said Douluo softly. Tang Wuling was wholly immersed in the experience as he savored her scent. At the moment, he did not wish to think about anything else. I've never told you this before in all seriousness, said Douluo softly. What? Douluo's arms suddenly tightened around him. I love you. I love you so very much. Tang Wuling's entire body shook. He hugged her just as tightly. At that very moment, he felt as if the pores on his body opened up. The three simple words gave him tremendous courage. I love you too. Tang Wuling's body shivered ever so slightly. All the pain he felt vanished into nothingness in an instant with that simple statement. Even though he had gone through so many twists and turns and had experienced so much pain and agony, nothing mattered anymore. Douluo said softly, regardless of the hardship and sacrifices in the past, the many responsibilities I shouldered, and the countless missions I went through, nothing can change this. I love you, Wuling. We'll certainly be together, even if it's going to take a very long time. Time will make it easier. What Tang Wuling did not notice was the unswerving determination and strong faith in Yuna's voice when she said that. Tang Wuling caressed her silver hair. No, I don't want to wait for a long time. From now on, we'll never part again. Generation after generation. Douluo, I think my body should be able to withstand even higher levels of the Golden Dragon King seals by now. Help me, I'm going to break the 16th layer of seal. I need more power. Yuna's charming figure shivered once. Yet, she complied obediently. A blazing hot aura was unleashed instantly as the dragon core pulsated violently. There was finally an ounce of warmth in this icy cold world of Douluo. All senses of pressure and pain were all forgotten at this very moment. Their bodies and hearts blended as one in the tiny room of the barracks in Douluo. Within the sounds of their strong heartbeats, they unleashed their love and passion for one another without the slightest reservation. Layers of defense lines were continually set up on the mountain peak. The soldiers were working at it akin to machines. Although they realized that all their efforts were utterly useless, they still worked hard. The Abyssal Sage King brought a peerless feeling of oppression which made everyone's chest feel heavy. For them, the next 2 days would possibly be their last. Had it not been the strict military discipline, in addition to the faith brought by the powerhouses who went all out in the war, a military mutiny might have occurred. Nevertheless, everyone knew that all their efforts would be futile. What benefit could it bring? The three great fleets had vanished into nothingness with just one strike of the opponent. Regardless of how much effort they put in, how could they possibly defeat the undefeatable enemy? The vast majority of the soldiers had no idea what the Abyssal Plane was. They only knew the invaders came from the outside. In any case, the invaders were overly powerful. Beep, beep. A piercing whistle sound was heard. It was a whistle blow which called for an emergency assembly. If it were normal days, everyone would immediately be on the alert and head for the assembly at once upon hearing the whistle. On the other hand, it appeared that the soldiers slowed down today. Everyone appeared lifeless and in low spirits. They took 3 times longer than usual to gather for the assembly. The officers did not hurry the soldiers. They knew that everyone was close to having a mental breakdown. If they were not careful, it could possibly lead to a mutiny. Large screens were set up before the soldiers in the different areas. Although a large number of soldiers died in the battles earlier, the loss in the main battlefield was far less than the 3 great fleets. The large warships in the 3 great fleets were totally destroyed by the Abyssal Sage King. However, there were a number of smaller warships which survived together with a few of the powerhouses who managed to flee the warships in time. As far as the Abyssal Sage King was concerned, the people and their equipment were utterly inadequate to threaten his existence. It was not even worth his attention. Chapter 1929 Go, Heroes. The military officers did not speak. The white screens became illuminated in succession, and the videos were displayed before them at once. Dear respected frontline soldiers, I'm Molan and I'm a member of Parliament. Firstly, on behalf of the Federal Parliament, thank you for your service. Molan's demure face appeared on the large screens. Her pleasant voice attracted the attention of the soldiers on the scene at last. The Parliament is already aware of the situation on the front line. Every single one of us knows that all of you have given it your best. It is you that used your passion and lives to protect the Federation and our promised land. Every one of you is a real hero. Next, there are some videos that I would like to show you because we would like you to know that you are not fighting alone. Before her voice died away, the scene shifted to Mingdu Central Square. The square was reputed to be the largest in the Douluo Federation. It had the most spacious size of all the squares. At this exact moment, it was filled to the brink. The entire square was already filled with people. The crowd's mighty roaring voices radiated through the entire military camp in the next moment. Go Douluo. Go Federation. Go Tang Sect. Go Shrek Academy. Go Spirit Pagoda. Go War God Hall. Go Northwest Army Corps. Go Western Army Corps. Go, heroes, you are the best. Please continue to protect us. Our unity will certainly create miracles. We are your strongest supporters. An old woman was watching the screen with tears streaming down her cheeks, and the camera zoomed in on her face. Through her sobs, she shouted, Son, your mother is waiting for your return. Son, your mother is so proud of you. Regardless of whether you're still alive or you've already died in battle, you are the hero in my heart. If you are still alive, can you see this? Can you see that there are so many people cheering for you? I'll be waiting for your return, my son. A woman with a child in her arms was crying profusely in a similar manner. She cried aloud, Go, you must defeat those evil wretches for our child. You must come back to me alive and well. The roar of the sad and cheering voices came one after another. All mankind was united as one. The scene switched over to East City next. The deafening sound wave echoed through every corner of the streets. The scene switched over once again to Heaven Do City. Countless voices surged into the sky from the area surrounding the buildings that were being reconstructed. Shouts and cheers were heard coming from one city after another. The soldiers in Douluo felt like they could hear the calling from the Federation. Gradually, the gazes that had been stupefied and filled with despair began to brighten, and their dim eyes filled with tears. Yes, everything that they did had a purpose. All they had done was to ensure that these people cheering for them could live better. They were protecting the Federation, their family and friends. Every one of them was a hero. Though they had to confront their own mortality at all times, they suddenly heard the calls that came from their homeland and the Federation's unified voices. Gradually, blazing hot emotions began to spread in every single person's heart. Something that had constantly been suppressed within them began to erupt. Long live the Federation. Someone gave out a hysterical, raging roar first. All at once, an incomparably enthusiastic aura burst forth. Long live the Federation! Long live the Federation! The wild shouts that came from the soldiers radiated through Douluo in an instant. The brightness of the sky came from the calling of the unified people. When fear arose to its peak, the outburst of courage drove all of them to madness. At this very moment, there were fanatics, willing to sacrifice anything to protect their homeland and the Federation. Yes, the people that they protected were mothers whose faces were covered in tears and wives with children in their arms. They were not fighting alone there, as everything that they did was witnessed by their family members. Their actions showed them to be heroes. Why should they fight? They fought for the Federation, their family members, and their future. All at once, the soldiers that had been at their lowest point were like raging flames that were splashed with hot oil. They burst into cheers. The roaring that came from the screens did not stop even for a moment. Molan's voice was heard briefly. To the frontline soldiers, we wish to tell you that we are with you. We will be always cheering and shouting in support of you. We will provide you with everything that we can provide. We will be cheering for you at all times until the end of the war. If you win, we shall create miracles and glory. We will be welcoming your return with the most passionate hugs and fresh flowers. This war will be the greatest honor of your lifetime. If you lose, we shall bear the consequences alongside you. The passion of all mankind in the Douluo Federation's glory will be with you. The shouting was getting more and more intense. Yes, these large screens would be placed there at all times. The cheering voices of millions of people would constantly accompany every soldier on the battlefield until the end. For the first time in human history, this was a war that involved all people. Never had everyone taken part in a war. No one knew if this would be the final war, but they were well aware that they needed to exhaust every effort in this war without regrets. Meanwhile, a deep sound was suddenly heard. Thump thump, thump thump, thump thump. The soldiers that had just begun shouting with self-righteousness immediately quieted down. They immediately turned toward the abyssal passage instinctively. However, they soon discovered that the sound did not come from the abyssal passage, but a mountain peak, standing tall over there. A blazing hot gold-red color hue burst forth like an oil blowout. A giant golden dragon rose into the sky with an incomparably scorching hot aura. It illuminated the land with brightness like that of a golden sun. The golden dragon spread out its wings and let out a shocking dragon's roar over and over again. The sound of the brazen roars lashed into the purple sun in the sky such that it made Tula seem to turn brighter. In Mingdu Central Square, the people could see everything that was taking place on the front line through the widescreen just as the frontline soldiers could see them. When the gigantic golden dragon rose into the sky, the people stopped shouting because they had no idea what was happening. The golden dragon king. That's the golden dragon king. That's our dragon emperor Douluo Tangwolin. He is healed. He is even more powerful now. Oh, my little brother. The voice came from Molan. Her excited and even shaky voice echoed through the entire Federation. The Dragon Emperor Douluo had recovered from such severe injuries. In the next moment, the sound of mighty cheering 10 times more intense than before echoed through the entire Douluo continent. An enormous silver dragon rose into the sky to chase after the golden dragon. They complemented one another's majesty. The piercing radiance emitted from these dragons even made the purple sun in the sky pale in comparison. It was the silver dragon Princess Yuna. It was they that had led mankind's legion to last until that point. It was they that had defeated such formidable enemies over and over again. As long as they were still here, humanity still had hope. Yes, there was still hope. Tangwolin's golden dragon moon sun battle armor had completed its self-healing. He gazed down at the ground from the sky while being clad in a full suit of armor. At this exact moment, the passion in his heart was surging violently. He had watched the scenes and heard the cheering voices just as the soldiers had. Yes, they had millions of people standing in support behind them. Regardless of how powerful the enemy was, they did not have the right to withdraw. The only thing they could do was to spare no effort in defeating the formidable enemy and achieve victory. A green gold halo slowly emerged from Tangwolin's body, painting the area surrounding his and Gu Yuna's bodies with its hue. Chapter 1930 Unity of Will is an impregnable stronghold. Gu Yuna was right. In order to defeat the Abyssal Sage King, they would need to mobilize everything that they could. They were not defeated yet. The Lord of the Plains' power was cut off by the Abyssal Sage King, but the ancient life tree still thrived in Shrek Academy. This was not the time to consider the cost. This was the time for them to gather all their powers to defeat the formidable enemy regardless. Tangwolin closed his eyes. He sensed the ancient life tree's aura silently through the sound of all mankind's cheering. He had no idea what was the condition of the ancient life tree after the life sub-tree was destroyed by the Abyssal Sage King. The aura of the nature's child diffused to the outside to sense the existence of the ancient life tree, and a warm aura suddenly radiated through the surrounding area. A rich, green glow spread out from Tangwolin's body. Not only that, the glowing image of a gigantic umbrella-shaped tree gradually took form in the sky in the southern part of the inner Douluo continent. When the green glow shined upon the land, every soldier present could clearly sense the rich life source coiling around their bodies. The fatigue and cold they felt vanished into nothingness. What was that? The scene was not only experienced by the soldiers as the people in every corner of the Douluo Federation could see it as well. Even though they had no idea what it was, anyone could tell that this was absolutely a great thing for the frontline soldiers. What was most important now? The crucial factor was confidence. Excited emotions began to spread, filling everyone with enthusiasm once again. Tangwolin gazed into the ancient life tree's projected image in the distance, his lips tightly pursed. He had no idea what was the significance of the ancient life tree, but he was well aware that the final opportunity was already upon him. They would still stand a slim chance anyhow. 3 days' time was about to arrive. The amorous Douluo and the heartless Douluo sacrificed their lives to buy them some time and give them this final opportunity. Come, Sage King. We'll be waiting for you here. At that moment, the Unity of Will was an impregnable stronghold. The soldiers began to move out under the command of the military officers. Their depression from earlier had all disappeared. They were filled with vigor and vitality by the nourishment of the ancient life tree. They swiftly began making preparations to construct the defensive lines. The powerhouses were elevating themselves with great effort while basking in the rich life source brought by the ancient life tree. It was also at this time when a door of light slowly opened up nearby. 2 massive hulking silhouettes walked out from it. They moved with a steady gait and assumed a reserved bearing. Tangwolin was immediately overjoyed upon seeing them. He flapped the dragon wings on his back and landed on the ground like a golden meteor to welcome them. Uncles, you're here. Yes, the 2 silhouettes that walked out from the light door were the Azurox Python Deming and the Titan Giant Ape Ming. They were the 2 top-ranked beast kings that guarded the 10,000 beast platform. Judging by their age, they could not compare to Dutian. However, their cultivation bases were absolutely no less than the beast god. After all, they used to live in the divine realm and were the brothers of the sea god Tangzan. With the skin gone, what can the hair attach to? Although the Douluo continent has been ravaged by your humans, it's still a part of us, said Deming indifferently. He quickly shifted his eyes toward the light shield that sealed the abyssal passage. Ming winked at Tangwolin. Wolin, we're counting on you. Tangwolin took a deep breath and nodded strenuously. First ancestor. Yuan and Zenshin, Yuan and Tiandang, and the rest of the Titan Giant Ape clansmen hastily stepped forward upon seeing Ming. They saluted him respectfully. Ming chuckled and waved his hand to dismiss them. There's no need for such etiquette. All of you are great. At that point, the remaining human limit Douluos were only half the number they had been at their peak. Moreover, the quasi-gods had all fallen. The addition of the 2 great beast gods would undoubtedly elevate their overall capacity. The abyssal creatures were not the big issue, and they were confident that they could manage it. The only issue was whether they were capable of withstanding the abyssal Sage King. The Sage King was enough to destroy everything else. It was only possible to achieve the final victory by stopping him first. The people had gathered at the front line and waited silently. This time, even the divine brush Douluo Guanxi and the bright mirror Douluo Zhang Wanyun were there. At this point in the war, the leadership was no longer significant anymore. Tangwolin looked at Gu Yuna by his side. His confidence was already reignited. Because of the woman next to him, he would never allow himself to lose. Gu Yue, do you think I should open up one more seal? Or should I just open up all the seals? I think that I should be able to withstand the process after my body is elevated to god rank. Gu Yuna's expression changed drastically. She quickly shook her head and said, no, absolutely not. I sensed the seals inside your body before. It's extremely powerful and also extremely ingenious. I think it was left to you by your father. You should know that the 3 final seals contain the Golden Dragon King's real power. It is also his god rank power. The removal of each seal will elevate your body's endurance close to rank 3 godhood. In simpler terms, if the divine realm still exists, you can even surpass the demon empress godhood. On the other hand, the latter 2 seals will allow you to separately elevate you to rank 2 godhood and rank 1 godhood. In fact, you might even be stronger. Think about this. How immense will the elevation be with each godhood rank? In any case, your body can't possibly withstand the process of this elevation. More importantly, Golden Dragon King's soul is hidden at the 2 latter layers as well. If you're not careful, your body might be seized by the dragon. Thus, you're absolutely not to open up the final 2 seals. Only if there comes a day when your father returns to your side, may you attempt to do it with his protection. Tangwolin nodded quietly. They were communicating via divine consciousness, so only they could hear each other. Tangwolin suddenly said, Gu Yue, you're not a human being, right? Gu Yuna was stunned for a moment. She looked at Tangwolin and cracked a bitter smile. Have you already considered asking me this question for a very, very long time? Tangwolin smiled. That's not important. It doesn't matter whether you are a human being or not. I only know that you are my wife. Gu Yuna's charming face flushed. Who's your wife? I'm not married to you yet. Tangwolin held her hand. After the war has ended, I'm going to propose to you. I will certainly give you a grand wedding so that I can marry you officially. I told you that I'm not going to let you leave me again. Gu Yue took a deep glance at him. You really don't mind that I'm not a human being? You should have already figured that out earlier, right? That's right. I'm the other half of the dragon god, the Silver Dragon King. Tangwolin was shocked. It's true that I managed to figure out something, but I find that I'm still in a state of disbelief after hearing it from you. Gu Yuna's gaze showed that she was slightly confused. In the past, there were some issues when I transformed into a human being and turned into Naya. I lost many memories. Thus, you met the me that had lost my memories when you were young. With your nurture and protection, Naya's character gradually took form, and she fell in love with you. Afterward, Naya left because I regained my memories gradually, but her persona had already begun to exist independently. If I were to devour her by force, I would need to pay a tremendous price and it would result in an incomplete soul. Hence, I placed a bet with Naya. She requested that I approach you and treat you well. When the time came, she would agree to fuse with me. In reality, it appeared that Naya lost the bet on the surface because it was true that I stayed by you for a very long time. Yet in reality, I was the one who lost the bet because I fell in love with you. Thus, Naya was content when she fused with me. In fact, I dared not allow her to fuse with me as one in fear that I might hurt you. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.